my lovelies. Getting into the right mindset to get into your creative sewing space to create that history-bound wardrobe you've always wanted can sometimes be a bit of a struggle. Do you find that stuff builds up so much that you find it hard to get into the flow of creativity? Do you find that the weight of unfinished projects, clutter in your creative space, or just lack of motivation or nihilist thinking keeps you from being the awesome creator you really want to be? Well, have I got some cheery rah-rah coming up for you. If you're new here, my name is Althea, and I'm here to talk about sewing, courage, creativity, and all things history bounding and historical costuming. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some thoughts about how to reset and recharge your creative batteries, or not, because you don't have to live up to external expectations about your creativity or productivity. Sometimes you just need to rage against the machine, whether that's the sewing machine or social conditioning about what you should be doing. Your worth is not determined by your ability to produce labor or stuff. And this is true in your closet and your creative space. So much of modern self-help is telling you to adjust yourself to the system instead of how to make the system more humane. And if you find yourself lacking the motivation or will or time to be creative, don't stress about it. The world is a dumpster fire right now. It's okay to not be okay. Maybe reaching outside of yourself and connecting with community efforts to change things for a better world might be that spark you need. We often feel better when we do things that help others. More than likely, you may find that creative spark again. There are a multitude of life and productivity gurus out there for you to follow. My jam is sharing how I do things and hope that it helps you find your creative juices flowing like from a really ripe peach. But I want you to do this from a place of awareness, of context, and because it makes you happy down to your wiggly little toes, and because, damn, how cute is that bicycling sweater? For many people, the turning of the year is a time for reflection and looking ahead to the new year with bright, hopeful eyes. We make vision boards and quarterly plans, maybe think about vacations we want to take this next year or what sewing or creative projects will spark joy. Some people may do this in January, but others may find that this desire to renew at other times of the year, like Beltane or Samhain. Like so much in life, there's no wrong way to think about this. Others may do this reflection renewal cycle several times throughout the year. I do this reset in my creative space and in my mindset a couple of times a year, which helps me to stay on track. Otherwise, I'm like some goose wandering around the cornfield with no real aim. But if you are like me, stuff gets in the way of having a clear view of the upcoming months and how to achieve my goals, whether in my creative endeavors or business or home life. My studio gets messy and cluttered, I lose track of projects and goals that I set in a more hopeful time, and I find it hard to tease out what I need to be doing next. Let's focus on clearing mental space so you can plan for a year full of creativity and glorious purpose. I'll do other videos later to get into the nuts and bolts of being a productive, creative human on your own terms. For this conversation, I will limit it to our creative spaces and our wardrobes. There are really two ends of the spectrum, from being creative to dressing to expressing that creativity and wonder at the world. Because you are watching this channel, you probably have at least a passing interest in sewing and creativity and history bounding. But honestly, you can apply this to much of life. Just like when you're doing a tarot card spread, there's usually a card that signifies what is blocking you from your goal. It's important to find out what is standing in your way so you can address the issues. There could be a mental or physical boogeyman blocking you from your destination. So let's chat about our mental baggage holding us back from achieving our creativity goals. It's easy to see improvement when we clean our spaces. We can visually see it, but working on that squishy brain matter is harder to see and understand. I'm not a medical doctor or a psychologist. I'm just sharing what I have learned and observed in my own brain. You may find this works or doesn't work for you. We all walk our own paths, but maybe you will find something of value here. I have also found a frightening percentage of hoarders among sewists that would really make a dragon blush with the amounts of stuff that we have. We buy things on sale because I might need it someday. Yeah, raise your hand if this is you. No judgment. We collect the bits and the bobs and add to our stash because you never know what creative spark will come, and you just have just the right fabric. This allows for lucky finds at thrift stores or charity shops, for your favorite aunt to destash and gift you with loads of fabric and notions you can reuse and recycle for a more sustainable practice. The counter to that is being lean and spare in your stash and hoard. You only buy what you need when you need. This is another valid tactic, especially if storage space is an issue. With the internet, you can find most supplies and fabrics fairly easily. This practice of minimal stash acquisition is also sustainable in that less is purchased over time. There is no one way that is better than the other. You have to find what works for you and your available space. Chaos and clutter, tightly and tidily organized, somewhere in between. Well, I'm in the in-between category. I work better when things are tidy-ish, but I find that having clutter means that I have my tools at hand and they're easy to see. Along with my ADHD comes with issues with object permanence, meaning that if something isn't seen often, I forget about it, which is why I have about 6 pairs of paper scissors. I used to have such a cluster duck of piles of fabric bins and boxes, some of which hadn't been opened since I moved here years ago, so I kept losing my paper scissors and having to buy new ones. I did a studio cleanup a while back, and I'll post a link up here somewhere and in the description below. You might find something useful there, or you can do what I often do, watch YouTube videos about things I should be doing to get that dopamine hit without actually doing the thing. Just me? Okay. In our modern culture, we rarely leave space for deep thinking and introspection. We don't have enough time to question why and how we do things. I'm not talking about the everyday existential anxiety that comes with us having to deal with what makes us second guess ourselves. I'm talking about the time to think about why we organize our creative space the way we do. Is there a better way of doing it? What faulty thinking is keeping me from seeing new solutions to making my space and mind ripe for creative expression? We really don't do enough navel gazing. Sewing comes with a lot of stuff. Sewing machines, fabrics, notions, tools, and arcane artifacts are all a part of the accumulation of stuff. Whether it's the kitchen table that needs to be cleaned off every night or a dedicated space in a separate room, detritus seems to accumulate with frightening speed. I'm of the opinion that house gremlins come out at night and they take great delight in creating chaos in my sewing room. Or really, it could be that most of the time I just can't be arsed to put things away properly or haven't set a designated place for a designated thing. What are some problems you've been wrestling with lately? Share in the comments below and let's help each other find solutions. As I mentioned earlier in this video, our creative spaces and mindset are the starting point leading to being able to express your unique sensibility and passion for history through the medium of dress and costume. Whether we've done it consciously or not, we curate a collection of items that together make up our wardrobe. We don't tend to think of wardrobes as cohesive and curated assemblages of the sartorial arts. Okay, maybe that's just me. It might be you. There's no judgment either way. It just is. Our society isn't very good at helping us think holistically, so we need to make sure that we teach ourselves how to do that. Until recently, I really didn't spend a lot of time thinking about my clothes. Or at least I hadn't, since having kids meant I couldn't find vintage clothing that fit. Man, I used to love to wear the Dickens out of the 1950s and 1960s clothes. I had an amazing pillbox hat collection, but time, fatigue, and ennui erased that from my fields of vision. So part of the reason why I started this channel was to help me stay focused on doing better with my clothing consumption and to keep me focused on creating a wardrobe that really works within my lifestyle. I figured someone else might be going through the same thing, and this keeps me honest. If mental cobwebs or unfinished projects have piled up and is preventing you from moving into more creative and joyful activities, let's work on clearing them out. There are many reasons why we don't complete projects or buy clothes that don't make sense for us. We've had a lifetime of building and honing bad habits. It's not like they teach this stuff in school. We need to consciously cultivate our cranium to create the curated clothing cache that we desire. Capiche? I can't believe I made it through. This has happened to all of us. We make a profound mistake in a project and we can't finish the thing for whatever reason, and we toss it in one of our UFO doom boxes. And there it sits, and stays with all of its judgy, orky eyes staring at you day in and day out. Our punishment pile grows, as does our lack of will in dealing with it. And let me tell you, getting rid of your punishment pile can be one of the most freeing things you can do as a creative. I have a video about just that thing that I'll link up here and in the end screen. Anyone with ADHD knows what I'm talking about when it comes to issues with executive function. You know a thing needs to be done, it's not a difficult thing, but you just can't do the thing. The way I deal with executive function is to use a couple of tactics. The first is to reduce friction. This means doing things to remove any barriers to doing a thing. This is why I try to keep things tidy-ish in my workspace. If it's a mess, then I feel friction to starting a new project. The key is to remove barriers to starting the thing. If you are like me, once you start doing it, you just keep going. And that's why another trick that I use to trick my brain is the 5-minute rule. I will tell myself that I'm just going to do the thing for just 5 minutes, and usually that's enough to get me going and into the project or task. It's okay to use tricks to keep your brain headed in the right direction. What are some of the ways that you reduce friction to help with executive function? You know the drill. You are happily working on a project and a squirrel in the form of a really creative idea runs across your field of vision, and you drop everything to run down a rabbit hole of hyper-focus on the new shiny object. Or you constantly add to the list of exciting project possibilities but can't focus on just one long enough to complete anything. Yeah, that's the bane of my existence, and it's taken a really long time to train myself to not chase that squirrel right now. For instance, I really want to learn bookbinding and knitting and weaving and oil painting and many other things. I know I don't have time to do all of them. Maybe when I retire, if I ever get to retire, young folks out there should make better financial decisions than I did at their age. So listen to Auntie Althea and start a Roth IRA now. Where was I? Oh yeah, squirrel brain. This is tough because we get rewarded with dopamine hits when we dive down rabbit holes of new crafts or hobbies or really interesting topics. The upshot is to find a way to park those ideas somewhere to come back later. For me, it helps to watch YouTube videos about the thing I want to learn, but don't really have time to learn. Sometimes I have the realization that I don't so much want to learn the thing, but I like the idea of knowing the thing, if that makes any sense. Not knowing where you want to go means you rarely end up where you want to be. Who do you want to be when you are in your creative happy space? Who do you want to be when you are wearing clothing? There's no wrong answer, and there's maybe several answers to the question. We are not good at interrogating ourselves about motives and desires. Self-examination is a part of a whole rich life, and we should always challenge what we think we know, what we think we want. This will look differently for everyone. There are tons of videos out there on the topic of defining your goals, your clothing, style, or aesthetic, your self-reflective journaling, and such like. In the last couple of decades, we have seen the rise of minimalism as a lifestyle, of living simply, of consuming less, as a direct response to the ecological instability we see in our climate, our environment, and our peoples. We cannot continue to live beyond our means and hope to provide a vibrant life for future generations. Our culture has had centuries to develop its ability to control behavior using guilt. A lot of the philosophies masquerade as helpful, but toxic productivity, body positivity, and self-help pervade our culture so deeply that most aren't even aware of it. You don't owe anyone a smile or being beautiful or numbing your mind so much that you fit into the square hole that society ascribes to you. You don't owe anyone perfection in your mind, in your home, in your clothes, in your working space. You do owe it to yourself to do what is right and healthy for yourself. If your closet isn't perfectly organized, that's okay. If your creative space isn't perfect, that's okay. You are here to learn how to do something that gives you joy, and that's enough. If it makes you happy, it's perfect. You are enough. Okay, that was a little bit deep and heavy, and there may be something there that you need to sit with and process before going on. Take all the time you need. We'll still be here. I want to come back to why we are here in this community. We have a love of learning about historical clothing and a desire to find ways to bring that inspiration into our wardrobes. You deserve this. If you want to live your best 1890s secret pants wearing life, you do that. You effing do that. Life is too short to wear boring pants and to not dress like a Victorian lady detective. I hope you found something of value in this video today, and if you feel like supporting this channel, there are several ways to do that in the description below. You might want to watch this video, or is it over here? I can never remember. You might want to watch that video on not waiting to start your history bounding journey. And until next time, get vaxxed, stay safe, and I bid you joy.